welcome back to Animation Station, your number one stop destination for Spongebob Mom 2. Yes, I know, it's been a while, I'm sorry, I'm trying to play catch up. Anyway, so we have 10 episodes to go through today. Yes, count them, 10. We have, today, we have Big Pink Loser, Bubble Buddy, Dying for Pie, Imitation Krabs, Wormy, Patty Hype, Grandma's Kisses, Squidbill, Pre-Hibernation Week, and Life of Crime. So with all that said, you guys already know how this works. We're just going to go ahead and get through all these episodes right now, starting with Big Pink Loser. Let's go. Okay, first up we have Big Pink Loser. In this episode, Patrick wants to receive a reward because he feels like he can't do anything right. So he gets a job at the Krusty Krab, and SpongeBob tries to help him, but things go awry. This is a classic episode. Anyone who loves SpongeBob knows this episode. I mean, from the highlight, the infamously amazing, "No, this is Patrick," to the copying part, to smacking them on the heads with hammers. This is just a classic episode. The only reason I'm not giving this a 10, well, not giving this a higher score than everyone else probably will, is that while it is a funny episode, there are parts of it that can be a little bit repetitive. That being said, it's not bad by any means. This is still a great episode. Well, good episode. It's nearly great. Just there, but it just gets a little too repetitive. But it is still a very funny episode. It's still a classic. Final verdict, 7 out of 10. Let's move on to Bubble Buddy. Okay, and next up we have Bubble Buddy. In this episode, SpongeBob is looking for someone to play with him on Leif Erikson Day. But everyone else is busy, so he decides to make his own friend, and thus he creates Bubble Buddy. But things end up going awry when some misunderstandings, and now SpongeBob has to keep Bubble Buddy from getting popped. This episode is very good. I love this one. This is one of my personal favorites out of the two. Like, if I had to pick a best for, like, if I was just doing this week by week, like I usually do, 2 episodes a week, 2 episodes a day, excuse me, Bubble Buddy would probably be over Big Pink Loser. Yes, I know that's controversial, but it is what it is. Alright, so why, okay, final verdict on this episode is a 7, and you may be asking why am I giving it a 7? The same score as Big Pink Loser. Well, again, there are parts that can be a bit repetitive, and with this episode especially, there are some animation errors. Like, there's a part, it's a little hard to spot, but there's a part when fish are talking, like in the background, but their mouths do not move. I'm pretty sure it's because of budget. After all, this is still season 2, so, yep. And the highlight for me, I know a lot of people are probably going to want me to say, like, the ending or the customer service. No, mine is the door gag from the very beginning. that door gag is classic. I mean, there's a reason it's the home screen of my phone. So, yep. Final verdict, 7 out of 10. Still a very good episode. Now let's move on to Dying for Pie. Okay, and here we are at Dying for Pie. In this episode, Mr. Krabs encourages Squidward to do something nice for SpongeBob for Employee Brotherhood Day. So he decides to buy a pie from a bunch of pirates, which turns out to be a bomb. And they think that SpongeBob ate it. So now Squidward spends the whole day with SpongeBob to try and make his last day worth, the best day ever. Or give him so much love he'll drown in it. This episode, man, it's great. This is the type of stuff I love. When SpongeBob, and any other show for that matter, is able to get away with dark humor such as death. And this is a very funny, easy way to do that. They found a way to dance around the censor, even though there are a few moments that are still a bit questionable. By today's standards, anyway. But, yeah, this is still back in the, I believe, it was either late 1999 or early 2000, somewhere around there. Or no, this is 2001, excuse me. I'm getting mixed up. Anyway, highlight of this episode. There is a lot of highlights to choose from for this episode. But for me personally, I'd have to go with Oh yeah. It has to be Babble Like an Idiot, the ending. The ending is amazing. It is so funny, and it's such a nice reveal. And again, like I said, just because of that Babble Like an Idiot line, which makes me crack up every time I see it. This is a great episode. This one is an absolute classic. A top 10 episode for me for sure. And final verdict for me, 9 out of 10. So close to a 10, but not quite there. There are a few moments that are a bit random and a bit out of place. Minor nitpick, only reason it's not getting a 10, it's still a great episode. Highly recommended. Okay, next up, Imitation Crab. How do I even start this, man? This is an amazing episode of Spongebob, okay? This is not only an amazing episode of Spongebob, but I'd have to say one of the best episodes in all of animation. In this episode, in another scheme to try and steal the Krabby Patty formula, Plankton makes a robot Mr. Krabs to trick SpongeBob, but the real Mr. Krabs keeps interrupting. So now Plankton has to get rid of Mr. Krabs and fool SpongeBob into giving him the secret Krabby Patty formula. You know, the usual. But what makes this episode so great is its writing and its jokes. They are top-notch, non-stop laughs. In fact, I actually have two highlights for this episode. The highlight is the "Let Me Down" gag, and then the other highlight is when he tries to hide from Mr. Krabs and turns into a toaster. Honorary mention though to the tartar sauce, the tartar sauce questionnaire. That one was also really funny. This episode is it's perfect, man. There's nothing wrong with it. It is enjoyable from beginning to end, and it is our first perfect episode from season 2. 10 out of 10 is my final verdict. Just a perfect episode and an absolute classic. And there's nothing more for me to say than that. Excellent episode. Definitely a top 5 of the season. Okay, with all that said, let's keep moving. Let's move on. Okay, and here we are at Wormy. In this episode, SpongeBob and Patrick are left by Sandy to look after her pets while she goes away, what I assume is a science trip. She doesn't really specify. And they end up making a new friend with a worm that they name Wormy. Yeah, I know, real original. But overnight, after a whole day of fun, they see that Wormy isn't there anymore. They only see his remains, and they think that this monster, which is just a butterfly, ate him. So then they get scared, and then it goes around scaring everyone in Bikini Bottom. This episode has a really good concept. We all know it's a butterfly, but the reason why it's so scary is because of those close-up shots, and because, well, no one has seen a butterfly before in Bikini Bottom aside from Sandy. So this episode is very good. It is a very good episode. I can't call it great, and I especially can't call it 10 out of 10 classic like Imitation Krabs. And the highlight, I think you all know what I'm gonna say. No, that's Italian, SpongeBob. That is an amazing. That is just classic Patrick moment. Whenever there's a classic Patrick moment in any of these episodes, I have to put it as a highlight. That's just how it is. Patrick was amazing in these first 3 seasons. Okay, for the most part. But Wormy, final verdict, 7 out of 10. Great episode. Well, not great. Very, very good episode. Very close to great. Still highly recommended. Okay, let's move on to the next episode, which is Patty. Okay, and next up we have Patty Hype. In this episode, Mr. Krabs is desperate for ideas, and when burying himself alive doesn't work, and he keeps losing to the Shell Shack because they have a talking dog, which I believe is a reference to Scooby-Doo. I think. I could be wrong, but that's just what that reminds me of. Think about it. Shell Shack, talking dog. Scooby-Doo. Anyhow, SpongeBob decides to give them an idea, and it's called Pretty Patties, when they're available in different colors. But when that is just laughed out of the room by Krabs and Squidward. who is just in this episode just because. He decides to do it on his own and ends up becoming so successful that Mr. Krabs becomes, well, envious. And then the rest of the episode's a bunch of jokes. Patty Hype is another classic episode that I think everyone has watched at one time or another. There is a lot of great moments in this episode, but the highlight for me, you know me, like I said in the last entry, gotta do the classic Patrick moment. I gotta draw a new battery for this. Patrick never failed to make me laugh in these first 3 seasons, I swear. Like, even season 3, which I think is incredibly overrated. Yep, spoiler alert. I still really do enjoy it. It's a great episode. 8 out of 10 is my final verdict, and let's go ahead and move on to Grandma's Kisses. Okay. This is the most frustrating episode of the season, because it has a good start. You know, in this episode, SpongeBob spends time with his grandma, but gets laughed at work by people who probably have much better things to do. So with the help of Patrick, he decides to try and be more adult toward his grandmother. But then he starts getting envious when Patrick double backs on him, pretty much stabs him in the back, and pretty much steals SpongeBob's grandma away from him. Patrick is the reason this episode is frustrating, because he starts out fine, but as soon as they get to the grandmother's house, Patrick becomes an insufferable jerk. Just, that's all I'm gonna say. And don't worry, there are good moments in this episode. Like I said, it starts out strong. The beginning with his grandma is very sweet and very cute, and it is my highlight. It is a very cute moment. But the rest of it, it's just frustrating. And it's all because of Patrick and apparently everyone else in town being a hypocrite. Gee, was this episode a template for Someone's in the Kitchen with Sandy? Sorry, I'm thinking years ahead. My bad. Continue. This episode is frustrating. That's all I can say. It's frustrating. If you're not thinking about it critically, it's a decent watch. It's not like gonna teach kids bad things. And it does have a nice moral at the end where no matter how grown up you may be to the older parents, you'll always be seen as their kid. And that is a very sweet sentiment. I just wish the rest of the episode wasn't so frustrating. And because of that, I can't give this episode higher than a 4 out of 10 for my final verdict. It is very frustrating, yeah, it's just frustrating. The episode overall is okay, but that's just because it starts out so strong. After that, yeah, it gets a little insufferable. So yeah, this episode's frustrating, and we're gonna go ahead and move on to Squidville. So before I put my head through a wall. Well, that was painfully mediocre, but we're back to greatness with Squidville, another classic episode. In this episode, after SpongeBob and Patrick ruin Squidward's house with reef blowers, it's also, I'm just gonna say the highlight right now. The highlight for me is when the window gets sucked into the reef blower. When Squidward's trying to talk, and all you see on the side of the house is his nose. That moment is just too funny. And then at first, Squidville seems great because it's literally everything that he's wanted to do. Go, participate in dance, play his clarinet, go to the store, get canned bread, and then sleep and ride his bike and sleep and then do it all over again. But however, he finds that without some kind of differentiation, it gets very tedious and boring. Which is also actually a really nice lesson. This is a strong episode, man. A very, very strong episode. There are a lot of things I could have chosen as a highlight, but I chose that moment in the beginning because I had to literally pause it because I was laughing so hard. That's how funny that part is to me. I love this episode, man. Final verdict's a 9 out of 10. This is a very great episode. Very close to classic, but just not quite there. Okay, let's move on to pre-hibernation week. Next up is pre-hibernation week. In this episode, Sandy is about to go to sleep for the winter, so she gets all her exercise time in and invites Spongebob to come along with her. However, it becomes way too much for them to handle, so he decides to hide, and then Sandy sends them to find him. This is a very good episode. And you guys already know the highlight. This is a load of barnacles. Great moment. Very good episode. 7 out of 10. I don't really have much to say about it because I do kind of forget about it sometimes. It's not because it's bad or anything. It's just a bit forgettable. But I do enjoy this episode quite a bit. Okay, let's go ahead and move on to the final episode of this massive 10 episode review. And that episode is Life of Crime. And finally, we have the last episode of today, and that is Life of Crime. In this episode, SpongeBob and Patrick steal a balloon, not knowing it's Free Balloon Day, and then when it pops, they get scared of being in trouble, so they decide to leave Bikini Bottom, and then hijinks ensue. This episode's great, man. It's just great. Like, it's just great all around, like, and it teaches a good lesson, you know, don't steal. That is a good lesson for kids to learn. And, you guys should already know the highlight here. You took my only food. Now I'm gonna starve. That moment is just classic. It was between that and the fourth wall break, to be completely honest with you. But yeah, this episode is great. It's an 8 out of 10 for my final verdict. Okay, that was a lot of episodes. Let's go ahead and get to the final thoughts and close. Wow, that was a lot of episodes. I mean, seriously. Sometimes I wonder why I put myself through this. Well, I put it in for both the history books, the archives, and your amusement, so all worth it in the end. So for those of you that want to know the ranking of all the episodes we reviewed today, in last place, in 10th, we're going to have Grandma's Kisses by like a mile. The rest of these are good to great. And then we're going to have Big Pink Loser at number 9. Then Pre-Hibernation Week's at number 8. Then 7th is Bubble Buddy. Then 6 is Wormy. And then 5 is Patty Hype. 4 is Life of Crime. 3 is Squidville. 2 is Dying for Pie. And at number 1 is Imitation Krabs. That was a lot. That was a mouthful. That was a mouthful to say the least. But I'll be back here tomorrow. I don't know if I'm gonna go back to the 2-episode format, or if I'm just gonna keep doing a whole big slew of them. Because we are getting close to about halfway through this month, so. Or are we over halfway? I don't know. Anyway, thank you guys for watching. Be sure to like, share, and subscribe. Sorry it took so long, but got it done. So, I'll see you guys next time when we talk about Survival of the Idiots and dumped. Okay. Till then, I'm Jack Small. Thanks for watching. See you next time. Peace!